Welcome villagers to the Aquicorn Cove board game tutorial. Aquicorn Cove is a cooperative board game for 2 to 4 players. The goal of the game is to make the most prosperous village while maintaining the health of the coral reef in the bay. You'll have to balance between the needs of the people and the health of the environment. There is no winning or losing in this game, but you can always aspire to perform better than the last time you played. To set the game up, we're going to need to place the board in the middle of the table as I've done here. Place the food and money tokens off to the side. Set up our boat tile here within easy reach. And place the 4 damage tokens onto it. We're going to need to find our starting building tiles by finding the buildings with the compass in the top right corner. Once we've done so, we'll place them on their starting spaces with their uncolored side face up. If you're starting with only 2 or 3 players, you flip the north building face up. Then take the rest of the building tiles, shuffle them, and draw the top 3 tiles. Then place a stack beside those 3 tiles. These 4 face-up buildings will become your market during the game. You're going to want to take the rest of the tile tokens and sort them so that you at least pull out all of the pollution tiles and all the aquicorns. All that you should have left over then are different types of fish and empty net tokens. You can then take all of these tokens and place them inside your handy dandy Aquicorn Cove bag. You can then take one of your aquicorns and place them inside the bag. The other 3 will go into the reef. The pollution tiles can be placed beside the board within easy reach. As for the pollution tiles, depending on the difficulty you would like to have during the game, you take 1, 2, or 3 of those tiles and place them into the bag. You will then place an aquicorn meeple on the start space of the Wreath Health track, the Season track, and the Village Prosperity track. Your village will start with 3 food tokens. Each player then selects a character. A character will have a reference card, as well as a character deck, which you can tell is theirs because they will have their first initial amongst all the cards. Each character's collection of starting cards is slightly different. You will then shuffle the Aquicorn cards, the event cards, and the generic character card deck and place them off to the side of the board. Flip the reference card and shuffle your character deck. If you're playing with only 2 players, you will take the remaining character decks and shuffle them together. This will become a helper deck that is also placed to the side of the board. Every player then draws 3 cards. This will be their starting hand. You do not need to draw cards for your helper deck. Determine which player will become the first player, or head fisher in this case. The game recommends picking the player who most recently helped an aquicorn, or any other creature. They will take the fishing bag and be ready to start off the season. The gameplay is done over a number of rounds or seasons. Over the course of the game, you'll play through 2 years of this village. Each round will have 7 phases, which are also marked along the bottom side of the board. Phase 1 will have the head fisher draw an event card. So we simply take the top card of the event deck and resolve its effects. If an event card has this icon in the top right corner, that means we'll take that number of pollution tokens that have been set off to the side and place them into our fishing bag. Below the card's name will be a number. This number refers to which phase this card affects. Below that will be the actual effect of the card. We place this event card underneath the matching spot below our board, so that we'll have it for easy reference when its time occurs. After the head fisher has drawn the event card, if you're using a helper deck, you draw the top card from their deck and place it in a similar manner as you did with the event card. Player cards, however, can work in multiple phases. If this is the case, the players around the table will decide which phase they would like it to go under. So in this case, if I place this card under phase 3, the phase 3 events will occur. and not the phase 6. So players will need to decide where the helper card is best suited. After placing the helper card, every player around the board will take one of the cards in their hand and place it in the same way. The players are free to discuss their plans, see each other's cards, and decide what is best for the village. Multiple cards can go under the same phase. However, each player can only place one card. After phase 1 is complete, we'll move into phase 2. In phase 2, the head fisher will draw tokens from the fishing bag. If they're fish, they'll go onto the boat. If the token is a pollution token, it'll go straight into the bay. And if it's an Aquicorn, it will go into the reef. Now here's where things get a little tricky. The head fisher is allowed to pull as many tokens as he wants from the bag. Getting fish is desirable, because the number associated with the fish will be the amount of food that you get for that fish. Food is good because food will allow you to feed your village. If you can't feed your village, you will go down in prosperity, but I'll get to that later. However, if you take out a token that matches a fish that is already on your boat, you are overfishing that population, which is bad for a number of reasons. If you find an empty net, nothing happens, but it simply takes up space on your boat, which could have been for proper fish. The head fisher can continue to pull tokens until there is no more space left on your boat. But the more tokens they pull, the more they risk drawing pollution or overfishing. If you draw a pollution token, as I said, you'll place the token into the bay, but also reduce the health of the reef by 1 space. If you draw an Aquicorn, you'll place the Aquicorn into the reef and also draw 1 Aquicorn card, placing it wherever it goes on the phase tracker below the board, where its effects will be resolved later on. Once the head fisher is done drawing tiles from the bag, or they can no longer draw anymore because the boat is full, you'll count up the worth of the fish on the boat. Take that much appropriate tokens and food and place it in your village. Then take all the fish and empty net tokens and place them in the bag. However, if you overfished and you grabbed 1 or more of the same type of fish, you'll only take 1 of those fish tokens and place it in the bag. The rest are gone. Set them off to the side as a reminder for how many fish tokens you have overfished. In phase 3, popular actions on cards you'll find are the soap action, which will allow you to remove that many pollution tokens from the bay and set them off with the rest of the pollution pile. Another popular action is this pumpkin action, which allows you to gather any food tokens that are currently planted in the fields. I don't have any food tokens there currently, but if I did, like this for example, I could take that many tokens from the field and place them in my village. Once you perform all those actions, you will then check the bay. If the bay is completely clear of pollution tokens, you've kept the bay clean, and you'll move the meeple on the reef track up 1 space. If the bay is not clean, the meeple will stay where it is. At the end of phase 3, you'll take 1 of the Aquicorn tokens in the reef and place it into the fishing bag. During phase 4, you'll plant tokens in the field for the number that appears on your character card. But there's something unique about this, is that it has this blotchy outline. This means if you perform this action, you will put 1 pollution from the pollution pile into the bay. This isn't so bad because sometimes it's necessary to perform these types of actions because they're typically better than others that would go in the same spot. But it does mean that you'll need to spend time cleaning the bay afterwards. However, something good to note about this is that when you do these actions that put pollution into the bay directly, it doesn't make the meeple on the health of the reef track go down. That only happens when you pull it from the bag. So with enough careful planning, you can clean up the bay and increase the health of the reef. So here I'll place tokens onto the field for that action. Whenever you plant tokens in this way, check the season that you're in. If this icon appears on your season, the village sees what you're doing and they join you, and they also plant that many food tokens into the field. So just like that, I've doubled my production this round. When multiple cards happen during the same phase, we get to pick the order which they occur. So let's talk about the pollution in the bay. What you might not notice is that these are actually two tracks, the left and the right, which go up 3 spaces. When we add pollution to the bay, we get to pick which track it goes into, the left or the right. If one track ever goes and fills up to 3 spaces, we take all the tokens on that track and place them into the bag immediately. So you're going to want to make sure that doesn't happen by dividing the pollution somewhat evenly between these tracks and cleaning it up before it spills into your fishing bag. Because the more pollution tokens that exist in your bag, the more likely you are to pull them and decrease the health of your reef. During Phase 5, if the season was currently fall, we would automatically harvest all the tokens in the field and place them into our village. It is not currently fall, so we won't do that. Then we'll spend food equal to the number on our village prosperity track. Right now our meeples started on the 7 space, so that means we'll need to spend 7 tokens worth of food to feed the village. If we cannot do this, we'll spend as much as we can and then drop the prosperity by 1. But we were able to feed our villagers, so we'll stay on the 7 space. During Phase 6, we will build or repair. The build or repair icon looks like a hammer, and we can build or repair a number of buildings equal to the number that exists there. We'll also see this coin, which will be income, and we'll draw a number of coin tokens and put them in our building supply spot. To repair a building, we simply need to take a building that we have and flip it face up. To build a building, you will look at the buildings that exist in your market and pay their costs by spending a number of food tokens or building supplies that you currently have. You can't spend the food that is still planted in your field. The event card that I drew allowed me to repair 1 building or gain 2 food. I'll gain the food. One of the cards that I played allowed me to repair a building, so I repair this building. The last one would allow me to repair or build, so I will build something. Not only do you need the money in order to build a building, you will also need a matching space. Each building has an icon in the bottom left corner. This will need to match up with one of the spaces that appears on the bottom right of a building you already own. Buildings can only be built next to these spaces adjacent to the coast, or buildings that have already been built in your village. Here this building is unrepaired, so I cannot attach this building beside it even though the icons match. I will need to repair this building beforehand and then place it after. If the icon here is a star, it can be placed next to any building, or any building can be placed next to it. If there is a choice, as there is here on the top, you get to pick which building of the matching symbol you want to place there. Not only is the symbol in the bottom left the symbol that you need to match with the building on the left, but it is also the income of that building. It is what you get as a benefit for building that building. And these icons match the icons that you've already seen on your cards. This would denote income, meaning that you'll get coins every round, or you'll automatically clean part of the bay every round, or you'll automatically plant into your field every round. The wild icon can be any one of those 3, but you must pick which one. If you build a building and place it correctly, you will move the prosperity tracker up 1 space. You do this for each building you build. You don't get any prosperity for repairing a building. If your tracker moves onto a space that has this character card icon, each player will take a card from the generic character stack and place it on the top of their deck without looking at it. I didn't mention it before, but this icon on the starting buildings will allow you to repair your boat. So when I repair this, I can remove one of the broken tokens from my boat, which then gives me space for fishing in the next round. And lastly, at Phase 7, you'll gain building income in the order that you choose. Each player will draw a card, and then you'll lose all the food that exists in your village except for 4. Once the round is done, you'll simply discard all the cards that were placed beneath the track, move your meeple into the next season, and pass the fishing bag to the next player. They will become the head fisher this season. Then follow the track at the bottom of the board as we've already done. Remember that during fall, which is this season here, it plays like a normal round, except that during phase 5, any food that exists in the field will automatically go into the village. Now, this season is winter. Winter is not played like a normal round. Instead, you'll take a number of winter dice equal to the number above your meeple. So here, our meeple is below the 3 spot here, which means we'll take 3 winter dice and roll them. We'll then match up the dice along our village here from left to right. The signs show us where the dice go, and it's possible for dice to hit nothing or to go even deeper into our village. So you'll want your reef health to be higher so that you roll less dice during winter. So what happens when the winter dice go on top of your buildings like this? If this occurs, you'll flip over that building and lose the benefits that it had. So in this case, when this gets destroyed, we'll place one of our damage tokens back onto our boat. Now what happens when a winter dice would be placed on top of a building that's already broken? If this is the case, we'll take 2 pollution tokens and add them into the bay. Remember, because you didn't draw it from the bag, this does not decrease your reef health, but it'll bring you pretty close to the pollution spilling mechanic that we mentioned before. If it's on an empty space, nothing happens. And that's the game. The last season here is the Epilogue, which plays exactly like a normal round. It has a planting bonus, and will even allow you to harvest all the food in your field for free. Once the Epilogue is over, you will then tally up your score. Your score is based on where you end on your reef health track and your village prosperity, but it is modified right before the very end. You modify your prosperity score by reducing it by 1 for every 2 damaged buildings, rounding up. So in this case, I have 2 buildings, so I would go down by 1, and that will be my final placement. You modify your reef health score by counting all the fish tokens you have overfished. You reduce the reef health by 1 for every 2 overfished tiles, rounding up. But that's not all. You'll also reduce it 1 spot for every 3 pollution tokens that exist inside your fishing bag, rounding up. Once you determine your final placement, there's a nice chart here that'll tell you to read how prosperous your village ends up and how healthy is the reef. Remember, there's no winning or losing. There's simply doing better than the last time you played. For as cute and simple as this game is, there's actually a little bit of strategy involved in it. And that's everything you need to know to play the Aquicorn Cove board game. Thank you so much for watching, and if you enjoyed the video, please like it and subscribe to the channel to support the future release of more videos like this. Perhaps this board game inspires you to do something for the environment. Or perhaps get on a fishing boat to fish me as much Alaskan trout as you can, because that'll let YouTube know that I'm good for business. But that's all for now. Thanks for watching.